A cargo ship leaves the port of Shanghai. On paper, it's carrying industrial parts, machinery, electronics, routine trade. But the ship doesn't head to Europe. It doesn't head to Africa. It quietly turns toward the Persian Gulf, toward a country under some of the heaviest sanctions in modern history, toward Iran. Inside those containers, according to Western intelligence reports, are components that have nothing to do with civilian industry. Drone parts, missile guidance technology, surveillance systems, specialized metals used in centrifuges. This isn't trade. This is a weapons pipeline. And it's worth an estimated $5 billion. For decades, the world assumed China would stay out of the Middle East's wars. Beijing was the businessman, the buyer, the neutral player. But something has changed. Quietly, strategically. And almost no one is talking about it. So here's the question that should be on every analyst's desk right now. Why is the world's second largest economy secretly arming the most isolated regime in the Middle East? And what does Beijing actually want in return? To understand what's happening, you have to go back to 2021. That year, China and Iran signed something called the 25-year Comprehensive Cooperation Agreement. On the surface, it looked like a standard trade deal. Energy for infrastructure. Oil for investment. $400 billion over 25 years. But buried inside that document was something far more important. A clause on military cooperation. Joint training. Intelligence sharing. Weapons development. Western governments shrugged. Analysts called it symbolic. Iran was broke. China was cautious. The deal looked like paper. Except it wasn't. Within 2 years, satellite images showed new Iranian drone facilities using Chinese-designed components. Russian Shahed drones, the ones bombing Ukrainian cities, were found with Chinese microchips inside. Iranian ballistic missiles started showing improvements that experts traced back to Chinese engineering. And then came the oil. China began buying nearly 90% of Iran's exported crude, most of it through shadow fleets. Ghost tankers. Falsified paperwork. Payments routed through small banks in Hong Kong and the Wei. The money flowed one way. The weapons flowed the other. A pipeline had been built, just not the kind anyone could see on a map. But here's the part most people miss. China isn't doing this because it loves Iran. Beijing has no ideological bond with the Islamic Republic, no shared religion, no shared history. In fact, China is busy oppressing its own Muslim Uyghur population while shaking hands with Tehran. So why arm Iran at all? The answer sits in 3 letters. USA China's real target isn't Israel. It isn't Saudi Arabia. It's the United States. And the most efficient way to weaken American power isn't to attack America directly. It's to force Washington to fight on too many fronts at once. Think about it. Every drone Iran sends to Russia for use in Ukraine drains American weapon stockpiles. Every Houthi missile fired at a Red Sea tanker forces an American warship to respond. Every Hezbollah rocket launched at Israel pulls American attention away from the Pacific. And the Pacific is what China actually cares about. Taiwan. The South China Sea. The future of Asia. So Beijing has discovered a beautiful strategy. Keep America bleeding in the Middle East. Make every conflict more expensive. Let Iran do the dirty work. Provide the tools. Stay in the shadows. And quietly prepare for the only confrontation that matters. This is where the strategy becomes dangerous. Because Iran isn't just a tool. Iran has its own ambitions. For Tehran, this partnership is survival. After Israeli airstrikes destroyed major Iranian air defense systems in 2024, after the collapse of Assad's regime in Syria, after Hezbollah was decimated by Israeli operations, Iran was bleeding from every direction. Its proxies were shattered. Its deterrence was broken. Its nuclear sites were exposed. Iran needed a lifeline. China provided one. In exchange for cheap oil and strategic access, Beijing began offering things Iran could not buy anywhere else: advanced radar systems, anti-ship missile technology, cyber warfare tools, and most importantly, a diplomatic shield at the United Nations Security Council. Every time the West tried to sanction Iran further, China vetoed or stalled. Every time evidence of weapons transfers emerged, Beijing denied everything. Plausible deniability became the new currency. And while the world watched Gaza, watched Ukraine, watched Taiwan, the China-Iran axis quietly hardened into something resembling a real alliance. Now look at how the other actors are reacting, because each one tells a different story. Israel sees this clearly. Israeli intelligence has been warning for years that Chinese technology is reaching Iranian weapons programs. Mossad operations have reportedly intercepted shipments, sabotaged supply chains, and assassinated engineers tied to these networks. But Israel cannot strike China. It can only strike what China sends. And every strike risks a wider war. The United States is in a harder position. Washington wants to confront Beijing, but it also wants to avoid pushing China and Russia into a deeper military bloc. So American responses have been cautious. Sanctions on specific Chinese companies, quiet warnings, diplomatic pressure, but no real punishment. And Beijing has noticed. Every uncrossed red line is an invitation to push further. Russia is the silent fourth player. Moscow buys Iranian drones, Beijing supplies Iran, Iran supplies Russia. The three countries form a triangle of convenience. None of them fully trust each other, but all of them benefit from American distraction. This triangle is now the most important geopolitical structure outside of NATO, and almost no one in the public talks about it. So what are the hidden consequences of this weapons pipeline? The first is technological. Iran is no longer a backward military power. Thanks to Chinese components and engineering, Iranian drones now have longer range, better targeting, and improved stealth. These same drones are being mass-produced and exported to militias across the Middle East and Africa. The technology is spreading, and once it spreads, it cannot be recalled. The second consequence is economic. China's purchase of sanctioned Iranian oil is quietly destroying the effectiveness of Western sanctions. If sanctions don't work on Iran, they won't work on anyone. North Korea is watching. Venezuela is watching. Every rogue state is learning that the West's most powerful non-military tool can be neutralized with Chinese help. The third consequence is the most dangerous. It's psychological. For 70 years, the world operated under one basic assumption. The United States sets the rules. Other powers complain, but they follow. That assumption is now breaking. When China openly arms a country under U.S. sanctions and faces no real consequences, it sends a signal. The old order is negotiable. The rules are optional. And the door is open for others to do the same. This is where the conflict becomes truly explosive. Imagine a scenario. Israel detects an imminent Iranian nuclear breakout. It launches a major preemptive strike. Iran retaliates with hundreds of Chinese enhanced drones and missiles. American forces in the region take casualties. The U.S. is forced into a full-scale war in the Gulf. And while Washington is consumed by that war, Chinese ships begin moving on Taiwan. This isn't fantasy. This is the scenario American war planners are quietly modeling. According to reports from the Center for Strategic and International Studies and the International Institute for Strategic Studies, the China-Iran linkage is now considered a top-tier concern inside the Pentagon. A weapons pipeline doesn't just arm a country, it reshapes the entire timeline of global conflict. So what happens next? There are three realistic paths. Path 1. The pipeline expands. China deepens its support. Iran rebuilds its proxy network. The Middle East enters a new and more dangerous phase. American influence keeps eroding. Path 2. A direct confrontation. Israel or the United States moves aggressively to break the China-Iran link. Chinese ships are interdicted. Sanctions become teeth. The crisis escalates into a global standoff with unpredictable consequences. Path 3. A grand bargain. The U.S. negotiates with China over Iran in exchange for concessions on Taiwan or trade. This is the most cynical path, but historically, great powers have always traded smaller nations to avoid bigger wars. No one knows which path wins, but every month the pipeline operates, the choices get harder, and the cost of fixing it gets higher. Here's the deeper truth this story reveals. This isn't really about Iran. Iran is the symptom. The real story is about the slow construction of an anti-Western alliance built quietly through energy deals, weapons transfers, and shared interests. China is the architect. Iran is the laboratory. Russia is the partner. And the United States is, for the first time in decades, on the defensive. $5 billion is not just the price of a pipeline. It's the price of a new world order being built one shipping container at a time. The question isn't whether this strategy will succeed. The question is whether the West will recognize the game before the rules are rewritten. Because by the time a pipeline becomes visible to the public, it's usually too late to shut it down. And somewhere, right now, another cargo ship is leaving Shanghai.